I was kicked out for refusing my brother $30,000. I walked away with everything they built, and one calculated move after that turned their illusion of power into the brutal collapse they never saw coming. I, 27 male, got kicked out of my parents' house with 3 suitcases and a note taped to one that said, "Leave. We're no longer family." All because I wouldn't give my younger brother Mason, 25 male, $30,000 for some business idea he pulled out of his ass. But we'll get to that. Let me back up and show you exactly how screwed the whole setup has been from the start. I've been getting hit with unfair treatment since before I could drive. My parents have always bent over backwards for Mason. He was the golden child from the jump. Every birthday he got new tech, new sneakers, cash. I got a generic gift card and a cheap cake from the bakery clearance rack. Every single year he got a car at 17, a used but clean Civic with tinted windows and subwoofers. Me? I had to save for 2 years working part-time at a warehouse just to buy a 2004 Corolla with a broken AC and 180,000 miles on it. When I moved back in after college, I agreed to pay $1,000 a month, rent, utilities, groceries. My parents called it responsibility. Meanwhile, Mason lived completely rent-free. He didn't even pretend to contribute. No job, no chores, no accountability. He'd sleep till noon, blast music all day, and still get praised for trying to figure it out. At one point I brought it up. I just asked why I was paying $1,000 and Mason was doing nothing. My dad goes, "You're older, you're working full-time. Mason's still figuring things out. You've got stability." What he meant was, Mason's their favorite and I'm just the backup plan if they need bills paid. I worked 50-plus hours a week at a dealership in Chicago. I closed deals, hit quotas, skipped vacations, stacked my savings. I had $126,000 saved by early 2022. Mason, during that same time, blew through 3 different side hustle phases. First it was dropshipping, then crypto, then NFTs. He failed at all of them. Guess who covered his phone bill, gas, and insurance each time he ran out of money? Not me. My parents. They just kept giving quietly under the table. I saw them hand him envelopes of cash in the garage more than once. They thought I wouldn't notice. Or maybe they just didn't care anymore if I did. The final straw came one night in May. I'd just gotten off work, closed 3 sales, and was finally about to relax when Mason hits me with it. We're all at the table eating takeout. He goes, "Hey, I'm thinking of opening a coffee shop downtown. Just need a little help getting started. Can you spot me 30 grand?" Like he was asking for a phone charger. I laughed, thought it was a joke, then realized he was serious. I told him no, just straight up. No explanation, no sugarcoating, just no, I didn't owe him one. And like clockwork, the tension in the room exploded. My dad puts his fork down, leans forward, and says, "Family helps family. You've got money. You live here for cheap. Why can't you support your brother?" I reminded them I pay $1,000 a month while Mason pays 0. I reminded them I'd already lent him $2,000 over the last few years and never saw a cent back. I brought up the $500 for car repairs, $800 for a course, $700 when he claimed he was in between checks, never paid back. Not even a thank you text. My mom jumps in saying, "You're being selfish. Mason's trying. He just needs a little boost. That's what families are for." Funny, I don't remember anyone boosting me when I was working 2 jobs in college and eating tuna out of cans. They didn't like hearing that, especially not from me.
I left the table, went straight to my room.
First thing I did was move $120,000 into a time deposit so it couldn't be touched. Just had a weird feeling they were going to try something shady. I wasn't wrong. 3 days later, I came home from work and saw my 3 suitcases sitting neatly on the front porch, each one zipped tight. There was a folded sheet of printer paper taped to the biggest one, black Sharpie, my dad's handwriting. "Leave. We're no longer family." Dead serious. I reached for the front door and noticed the lock was new. My key didn't work anymore. They changed the locks on me. I just stood there for a second staring at it all like some glitch in the Matrix. Couldn't decide if I was pissed, shocked, or just tired. I called my mom. No answer. Called my dad. He picked up after 10 rings. I didn't even yell. Just said, "Did you guys kick me out?" He goes, "Yeah, you're not part of this family anymore." That was it. Cold as hell. Then he hung up. I tried calling back. No answers, no argument, no warning, nothing. Just gone. And the best part, it was all because I wouldn't give Mason $30,000. Not for an emergency, not for a hospital bill, for a damn coffee shop he dreamed up after watching some YouTube podcast. I sat there for 15 minutes just looking at the front of the house I grew up in. The house I paid into, the one I helped maintain. Now I was locked out like a stranger. Eventually their car pulled up. Dad stepped out, looked at me like I was some squatter and said, "You're still here? Want me to call the cops?" I told him, "You can't evict someone without notice." I had rights under Illinois law, but I also knew staying meant living in a war zone, so I left. He shrugged and said, "Stay if you want. But if you do, I guarantee these next 30 days will be hell." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about the money. This was about control, power. They didn't care how much I contributed. I wasn't Mason, so I never mattered. I didn't fight, didn't scream, just grabbed my bags, threw them in my trunk, and drove off. And that was the day the revenge started. After I drove off with my 3 bags stuffed in the trunk and no place to sleep, I didn't call anyone, not even my cousin Jack, who's basically the only sane blood relative I've got. I wasn't in the mood for sympathy or pep talks. I just needed silence. I pulled into a cheap motel on the edge of Wicker Park and paid cash. I had money, but after what they pulled, I didn't trust anyone enough to sign a lease just yet. Laid there for hours, staring at the ceiling, just replaying everything. Got kicked out for not bankrolling my brother's 4th failure. Got told I wasn't family because I had the nerve to say no. Got replaced by a kid who once set off the smoke alarm trying to microwave frozen pizza with the cardboard still on it. At around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Jack, heard what happened. "Come by tomorrow. Grandpa wants to see you." I hadn't told anyone. Mason probably bragged about kicking me out like he just won some reality show. Figured if anyone was going to run their mouth, it would be him. I crashed for maybe 3 hours, then headed straight to Jack's apartment the next morning. He was already waiting at the door with coffee and one of those I don't even need to ask faces. Didn't waste time with small talk, just got in the car and headed straight to Grandpa's place in Oak Park.
Now let me be real.
My grandfather is not some warm, cookie-baking old man. He's sharp, quiet, runs on logic, not hugs. He doesn't say a lot unless it matters. But growing up, he was always the only person who treated me like I had a brain. When I was 10, he taught me how to change brake pads. When I was 16, he handed me a bank deposit slip and said, "Start saving. One day you'll need it." When I was 22, he told me never to co-sign anything for family. That stuck. We got to his place around 10 a.m. Same 2-story house with the same rose bushes he trims like it's his job. He was on the porch sipping tea like nothing ever phases him. He nodded at Jack, then looked at me. "Heard your father thinks you're not family anymore." That was all he said. No, are you okay? No dramatic reaction, just straight to the facts. I said, "Yeah, they locked me out for not giving Mason money." He nodded like he already knew the details, which I'm pretty sure he did. Jack must have told him everything. Grandpa motioned for us to sit. Didn't even blink. Just said, "Good. Then now I can do this without interference." I looked at Jack. Jack shrugged like, "Just roll with it." Grandpa got up, walked inside, and came back with a thick folder full of legal documents. He dropped it on the table and tapped it. "This house, the one they're living in, it's mine. Always has been. They've been renting it under a family agreement I set up after your grandma passed. I never gave them full ownership, only occupancy." I just stared. For years I thought the house was under my dad's name. He acted like it. Always told us my house, my rules. Turns out his rules were being enforced in a home he didn't legally own. Grandpa kept talking like this was a business meeting. "I prepped the transfer months ago but only filed it last week, right after they kicked you out. I wanted to wait until they showed their true colors fully. I had it notarized and registered with the county. The title is clean, 0 liens. It's yours." Jack looked as shocked as I felt, which is saying something. He probably knew something was coming, but not this. I opened the folder and skimmed it. Title deed, property history, the works. Grandpa wasn't bluffing. He dropped the hammer. "There's a clause in there, one that says if anyone, Dennis, Victoria, or Mason, tries to challenge the transfer or claim part of the property, they're disqualified from receiving any assets from my estate ever." I blinked. He said, "I told the lawyer to lock it down tight. If they try to drag this through probate court, they'll lose whatever inheritance they thought they were getting." I sat back holding the paperwork, trying to wrap my head around the fact that I now legally owned the house my parents had just thrown me out of. They kicked me out of my own house. I asked him why, like why go this far? He didn't answer right away, just sipped his tea, then said, "Because I saw what they did to you. Because I saw how Mason treats people. Because I warned your father 20 years ago that if he ever started pulling this favoritism crap, I'd fix it my way." Then he stood up like the conversation was over, and it kind of was. Jack drove us back and just muttered, That's going to blow up real fast. Over the next 2 weeks, I got everything finalized. Courthouse visits, property filings, insurance. Slow, but official. Had the deed copied and notarized. Updated the mailing address for property taxes. Opened a new homeowner's insurance policy. All of it. If I was going to own it, I was going to lock it up properly. Then I waited, and sure enough, exactly 1 week later I got a call from my dad. First time hearing his voice since the eviction stunt. He didn't even apologize. He just said, "We need to talk about the house. We just got something in the mail from the county saying it's under your name. That can't be right." I didn't argue. I said, "It's right. You're in my house now." Silence. Heavy silence, then a strained, "We need to talk." I gave him a date and time. Saturday at the house, all of them. Then I hung up because now the house they thought they ruled belongs to me, and they were about to learn what that really meant. Saturday rolled around fast. I pulled into the driveway of the house they used to call theirs, now mine, at exactly 10 a.m. I parked in my usual spot like I never left, like they never kicked me out with 3 suitcases and a Sharpie note. And let me tell you, seeing their faces through the window when I stepped out of my car was worth every second of the years I spent putting up with their crap. Dad opened the door with that stiff, trying to act in control posture he always pulled when he knew he screwed up but didn't want to admit it. Inside, the whole trio was waiting. Dad, arms crossed, Mom fake smiling like this was a misunderstanding, and Mason half asleep in basketball shorts like I'd interrupted his daily nap schedule. I didn't sit. I stood by the entrance and pulled out a folder, the same one Grandpa gave me. Set it on the coffee table and flipped it open. "I'll keep this short," I said. "The house is mine now. I own it legally. It's not a mistake. It's not temporary. It's done. Grandpa handled it, and I've already filed everything with the county." Dad didn't even look at the papers. He just scoffed like I'd brought a box of Monopoly money. "This is insane," he said. "You're 27. You can't just own a house like this out of nowhere. This is my house." "No," I said. "It was Grandpa's house. You never had the deed. You had an occupancy agreement. You lived here under a family lease that ended when you kicked me out." "Mason, so what? You going to evict us now? Call the sheriff eventually?" "Yeah," I said, "if you don't leave voluntarily." Mom stood up like she was about to give a speech at a PTA meeting. "We are your parents. We raised you. We gave you everything. This house has been ours for decades. You can't just throw us out." I looked straight at her. "You're right. You raised me. But the second I stopped being useful, you tossed me out like garbage over $30,000. You didn't just remove me from your house. You told me I wasn't family. Remember?" Dead silence. I let that hang in the air. No one said a word. Then I pulled out the second page of the folder, the legal clause Grandpa added. "And just so we're clear, if any of you try to challenge this in court, your inheritance gets wiped." That was his condition. Try to sue me. Try to reverse this. You lose everything. Dad's face turned red like someone flipped a switch. He stepped forward and said, "This is manipulation. This is your grandfather trying to divide the family. You really think you deserve this house more than your own brother?" At that exact moment, Mason, who had been fake yawning and checking his phone the whole time, chimes in. "Honestly, bro, just let us stay. I got business stuff to work on. I don't have time to move out right now." I stared at him and said, "You're not staying. None of you are. I'll give you 30 days. After that, I'll file for formal eviction." Mom actually started crying, not full sobbing, but the dramatic, controlled crying she used to do when she wanted sympathy without ruining her mascara. "We're your family," she whispered. "Don't do this to us." And that's when I decided to shut it all down. "No," I said, "you did this to yourselves. You kicked me out over money that I worked for. You watched Mason disrespect this house, lie, borrow, and never pay back. And you said nothing. You stood by while he mooched and called it support. You made your choice." Dad walked out first. Didn't say anything. Just stormed off like the room offended him. Mom followed. Mason stayed behind, still sitting there like he didn't understand what just happened. "I thought we were cool, bro," he said. "You're really going to do this over some coffee shop idea?" I looked at him for maybe half a second and said, "Yeah, and you're lucky I'm giving you 30 days instead of 30 minutes. Then I left. I came back a few hours later with a locksmith and got all the locks changed. Yep. While they were still inside. I didn't give them keys. I didn't explain. I just let the guy do his thing. Mason opened the door while the guy was drilling. "What the hell are you doing?" he said, changing the locks. "New owner, new keys," I said. "You can't do this." I pointed to the paper taped to the window, notice of legal ownership transfer filed with Cook County Recorder. "I can." And I did. He slammed the door. Didn't stop the locksmith. Once everything was swapped out, I went home to my place. The next few days were radio silence, no texts, no calls, not even from Mom. But on day 5, my phone lit up. A message from my dad: "We've been thinking. Maybe we were too harsh. Maybe we rushed things. Can we talk?" I ignored it. Day 6, another one. "Mason's been depressed. He didn't mean to disrespect you. We all made mistakes. Let's move forward." Still ignored. Day 7, "Please don't evict us. We can work something out. We'll pay rent if that's what you want. Too late for that." I gave them the full 30 days. On day 30, I filed the eviction papers. They got the notice on day 34. On day 36, they were gone, just like they wanted me gone. You'd think after getting formally evicted, they'd finally take the L and move on. But no, my family doesn't go down with dignity. They go down swinging and lying and dragging everyone else with them. A week after they moved out, I got a letter from some small-time lawyer they found on Google claiming there were irregularities in the ownership transfer. This guy really tried to argue that the house couldn't be legally transferred to me without proper family consent. Yeah, family consent on a property they didn't even own. I wasn't worried, but I sent everything to Grandpa's attorney, Mr. Chambers. Dude's been handling family business stuff for over 20 years and has the personality of a fax machine, dry, accurate, and terrifying in court. Chambers sent their lawyer a 3-line response: "My client is the registered title holder. The transfer was legally executed. Your clients never held ownership. If they continue to harass, we will pursue damages and a restraining order." That shut things down fast. But the real twist wasn't the lawyer stuff. It was the letters. 2 weeks after the eviction was final, Chambers called me and said, "Your grandfather left behind 3 sealed letters, one for each of them. He instructed me to deliver them only after they attempted to challenge your ownership or ask to move back in." Guess what just happened? I picked them up myself. Heavy cream envelopes, each handwritten in Grandpa's blocky engineer-style print, sealed with wax. I didn't even know people still did that. I didn't read them. Wasn't mine to read, but I did deliver them personally. Pulled up to the cheap condo they were renting over in Cicero. Place looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 80s. They didn't answer the door right away. When they finally opened it, Dad looked like he hadn't shaved in days. Mom was in a bathrobe. Mason was somewhere in the background yelling at his Xbox. I handed them the envelopes, without saying a word. They saw Grandpa's handwriting and went pale. "Where did you get these?" my dad asked. Grandpa left instructions. "These are yours. You earned them." Then I left. I don't know the exact contents of those letters, but I know what happened afterward. 3 days later, I got another text from my dad. "I was wrong. I failed you. I failed him. I'm sorry." First apology I'd ever gotten in 27 years. Didn't even respond. Mom tried calling the next day, left a voicemail through shaky tears saying she never wanted things to go this far, that Grandpa's letter opened her eyes. Still didn't respond. Then Mason texted, "Bro, I didn't know he hated me like that. No sorry, no accountability, just vibes and victim energy as usual." I didn't answer that either. From what Jack told me later, Grandpa didn't hold back in those letters. To Dad, he wrote about the decades of one-sided parenting, the silence while Mason walked over everyone, and the betrayal of kicking out the only one who paid rent and actually helped the family. To Mom, he wrote about enabling behavior, double standards, and the cowardice of going along with everything while pretending to be neutral. To Mason, well, Jack didn't hear the full details, but whatever was in that one hit him hard. Kid didn't leave his room for 3 days. They got nuked verbally, personally, legacy-wise. And it didn't stop there. Remember the inheritance? Grandpa rewrote his will the month before he passed. Everything not already transferred, stocks, savings, car, land up north, pension, all went to me and Jack. Nothing for my parents or Mason. Not a cent, not a dime. But it wasn't petty. It was airtight. He left reasons in the will written plainly, because they chose to treat family like disposable help, because they chose ego over decency, because they rewarded laziness and punished discipline. That's what was read out loud at Chambers' office. Mason cried for real. Dad left halfway through the reading. Mom stayed silently sobbing while holding Mason's hand like he was still a child who fell off his bike. When the meeting ended, Jack and I walked out, ownership documents and inheritance forms in hand, while the 3 of them sat there like someone died twice. Outside, Jack looked at me and said, "I've waited 15 years to see someone finally call them out." I didn't say anything, just nodded. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't have to argue or prove a point. They got to sit in the exact silence they gave me for years. A month passed. No more texts, no more calls. They disappeared from family gatherings, skipped holidays, and didn't show up for Grandpa's memorial. That part actually pissed Jack off. Grandpa raised that family, gave them everything, and they couldn't show up for one afternoon to say thanks. But honestly, I was fine with it. The house was quiet now, peaceful. I finally turned my old room into an office, moved Mason's stuff out, boxed it up, and had it dropped off at their apartment. Didn't even keep the gaming chair. Tossed it. Thing stunk. And when I saw the empty driveway, it felt good. Not because I wanted revenge, but because justice finally caught up. No dramatic speeches, no long arguments, just consequences. They taught me how to shut people out, so I gave them a taste. And the best part, it was legal. It was clean. And it was all set in motion the day they told me I wasn't family. About 2 months after the will reading, they came back. Not with threats this time. Not with excuses. With an offer. It started with a knock at the front door on a Thursday night. I wasn't expecting anyone. Checked the camera, saw Mason standing there with a grocery bag in hand, like this was some sitcom apology episode. I opened the door, didn't say anything. He handed me the bag. Inside was a half-warm pizza and a 6-pack of soda. We thought maybe we could talk, he said, like family. I stared at him, didn't move. Then I saw the real reason he came. Mom and Dad were waiting in the car across the street. Mason tried to play it cool. They're nervous. Figured I'd go first. I stepped aside and let him in, not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted to hear how desperate they'd gotten. Sat on the couch like nothing ever happened. Looked around like it was still his living room, like he still belonged there. Then he hit me with it. We're kind of in a tight spot right now. Rent's too high, Mom's not working, Dad got cut hours, I've been helping out, but it's not enough. I nodded like I cared. He kept going. We've been thinking, maybe we could move back in just temporarily, help each other out. You've got the space, help each other out. The same people who kicked me out without warning now wanted back in for unity. I didn't respond, I just stood there. Then he said the dumbest line of the night, we could pay rent if that makes it more fair. More fair, like he ever paid a dime in his life. I looked out the window. Dad still hadn't gotten out of the car. He was staring straight ahead like he was bracing for impact. Mom looked like she was holding back tears. Good. Mason tried to lighten the tone. Come on, bro, it's just temporary. You've got the house, you won, you made your point. That was his way of saying we finally realized you're in control. But this wasn't about winning, it was about reminding them what losing feels like when they finally don't get to rewrite the rules. I gave it to him straight. You want to stay here, all of you? Fine, but you're going to do it on my terms. Mason's eyes lit up. Okay, cool, what do you need? I grabbed a notebook from the kitchen and laid out the ultimatum. Rule 1, monthly rent. Each of them pays $900 a month. No exceptions, no extensions. Rent is due by the 1st, late equals $200 penalty. After 5 days, locks change. Rule 2, back pay $1,000 owed from each of them for the time I was paying rent while Mason freeloaded. Call it a retroactive fairness fee. Non-negotiable. Do it before move-in. Rule 3, chores. They clean up after themselves, they mow the lawn, they scrub bathrooms, they take out trash. If I come home and something's a mess, they lose next month's right to stay. 4, silence. No lectures, no parenting, no speeches about how things used to be. If they want to live under my roof, they do it in silence unless spoken to. Rule 5, apology. A written apology from all 3, signed, stating exactly what they did wrong, how they failed me, and why they're asking for help now. Mason's face dropped somewhere between Rule 2 and 3. You're not serious, he said. I stared him down. I'm not your brother here, I'm your landlord. Take it or leave it. He didn't respond, just nodded and walked out. Didn't even touch the pizza he brought. 2 hours later I got a group email, 3 PDF files attached, all signed, all dated, all apologies. Dad's was short and bitter. Said he regrets how things went and acknowledges that he made decisions based on emotion, not fairness. Mom's was longer. Said she let her fear and loyalty blind her and that she never should have allowed Mason to get away with everything. Mason's was weirdly formal, like ChatGPT wrote it. He admitted to taking advantage of the situation, not understanding consequences, and acting entitled. He even said he understood now why Grandpa saw things the way he did. I forwarded everything to Jack. His response: frame them. Mail copies back in 10 years. They moved back in that weekend, but it wasn't the same. No more screaming matches, no more passive-aggressive dinners. They barely talked, They kept their heads down. Mason stayed in the guest room and didn't touch the upstairs gaming setup I built. Mom cooked, cleaned, and never said a word about how things used to be. Dad paid his rent on time, cash in an envelope with a receipt request. I gave it to him like a business transaction because that's what this was now. Business. They lasted 41 days. Then one morning I came home from work and the house was quiet. Too quiet. Went upstairs, their rooms empty, closets cleared, suitcases gone. On the kitchen counter was a folded piece of paper. No names, no signatures, just 3 words, we get it. I didn't call, didn't chase, didn't ask where they went. They made their point and I made mine. 2 weeks after they left, I got a call from Chambers, Grandpa's lawyer. Guy only contacts me when something matters. Real cut and dry type. Andrew, he said, you'll want to come in. There's one more file your grandfather left for you. It was sealed, labeled with a delivery date 6 months after the house transfer. That date's today. I drove straight to his office in downtown Chicago. When I walked in, Chambers was already sitting at the conference table with a thick envelope and a flash drive beside it. Your grandfather didn't trust banks with everything, he said. He liked having certain things off the books. Old school. That envelope contains documents he prepared himself. The flash drive has scanned copies. I opened it. Inside was a typed letter and several sheets of notarized papers.
The letter started like this. If you're reading this, it means they tried to come back. I knew they would. They always do.
That house was just step 1. I didn't raise you to play defense. I raised you to finish what needs finishing. Then it got serious. Apparently, Grandpa had been planning this transfer for years. He didn't just give me the house. He quietly sold off a rental property he owned in Joliet, moved the cash through a private trust, and bought 2 more pieces of real estate, both already paid off and registered under my name. One was a duplex on the north side of Chicago, rented and generating monthly income. The other was a plot of commercial land near a shopping strip in Aurora, zoned for retail. He bought both under a holding company he created where I'm listed as the sole owner and managing director.
Then the last part of the letter hit. This is your inheritance, but it's also a wall. So when they come knocking again, because they will,
you don't just own the roof over your head, you own their future. He wasn't being metaphorical. Attached to the documents was a second letter, one I was supposed to send to my father only if they tried anything legal again. It was direct, Dennis. This is not revenge. This is correction. You built your legacy on entitlement, excuses, and a favorite son who didn't earn his place. I watched. I waited. And when you crossed the final line, I pulled everything you thought you had. It ended with, I didn't die bitter. I died clean. And I left everything to the one who never asked for more than what he earned. I sat back in the chair and stared at the ownership papers. 3 properties now, fully mine, all legit, no loopholes. No way to contest anything without violating the same clause they triggered by trying to fight the first transfer. I owned the house they lived in. I owned the duplex they could have rented. I owned land they might one day try to profit from, but now they'd get none of it. Chambers slid over a second folder. What's this? I asked. Trust disbursement records. Your grandfather assigned 20% of the rental income to Jack, said he was the only other one who didn't turn his back on you. I nodded. Fair enough. That weekend, I went back to Grandpa's old house in Oak Park, now technically mine too. I hadn't been there since his funeral. It was spotless. Jack had been taking care of it out of respect. He met me there to hand over the keys, and we walked through the place room by room. In the upstairs study, the one Grandpa always kept locked, I found a box labeled for Andrew only. Inside was a copy of his will, his military service records, and a single note in his handwriting. They'll rewrite their version of the story. Let them. You don't need to defend it. You just need to live well enough they never get a chance to rewrite yours. That was the last message he left. 3 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, this is Mom. Just wanted to say we're staying with a family friend for now. No pressure. Just wanted you to know we're okay. No apology, no mention of the house, no reference to everything they did, just a soft attempt at easing their way back in. I didn't reply. That same week, Mason posted a video on Instagram in front of a rental car, probably booked for an hour just to fake clout. Classic caption, starting over, haters gonna hate, cool. Start over somewhere else. By the end of the month, the duplex had brought in its first full rent cycle. I took the payment, paid the property tax early, and transferred Jack's share into his account. No fanfare. Everything was finally running the way Grandpa wanted it. No more begging, no more unfair rules, no more pretending like Mason just needed one more shot. They had all the shots. They wasted them. Now they'd live in the reality they built, and I'd live in the one they tried to take away from me. 6 months after they vanished from the house, I thought I'd seen the last of them. Then came the knock. It was a Sunday morning. I had just gotten back from the gym and was halfway through breakfast when I heard it. 3 slow knocks on the front door. Not urgent, just pathetic. I checked the camera. It was all 3 of them. Dad in some wrinkled button-down that didn't fit anymore. Mom behind him, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. Mason off to the side, hoodie on, staring at the ground like a kid waiting to be grounded. I didn't open it, just watched for a second. Then they knocked again. I opened the door partway, didn't say anything. Dad spoke first. "We need help." Not hello, not how are you? Just straight to the point. Classic. He went on. "We've been staying with a friend, but it's temporary. He's asking us to move out. We don't really have anywhere else." I waited. He kept going. "We're not here to argue. We just want to come home. We'll pay rent. We'll follow the rules. You name it." Mom added, "We were wrong. All of us. We shouldn't have treated you the way we did." Then Mason finally spoke. Quiet. Shaky. "I messed up, I know that, but I don't have anyone else, man." The guy who once bragged about being untouchable, the one who laughed when I got kicked out, was now asking me for a place to sleep. They stood there in silence, waiting for me to say something. Anything. "After everything you did, you're dead to me."